So I'm doing 21 half marathons over 21 straight days, so 21 kilometers a day for 21 straight days. And originally the goal was $21,000 for Pastone, which is a mental health facility here in the Niagara region where I'm from, that services youth, so 18 and under. And it kind of came about because of, again, going back to trauma, my past stuff with addiction and kind of recovering from that and wanting to give back somehow and show people like, hey, there's light at the end of the tunnel. You just got to battle, surround yourself with the right people.
Welcome to Sober Dad Crew, the podcast where we talk about all things sobriety, recovery, parenting, music, tattoos, work, and more. For more information, please visit soberdadcrew.com. All right, my guest this episode is Ryan Gallagher. He's a sober dad, a firefighter, and a runner who's about to take on 21 marathons in 21 days. Ryan, welcome to Sober Dad Crew.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's kick it off. How many kids do you have?
I have 2, 8 and 4, 2 boys.
8 and 4. All right. And did you always want to be a dad? Was that on your radar?
I think so. Yeah. Actually, before when I first met my wife, I was like, we're going to get married and we're going to have a little boy and we're going to name him Miles. And she's like, you're crazy. And then that's what happened.
Miles with an I or with a Y?
With a Y.
Okay. My oldest, who's 22, is Miles with an I.
Oh, no way.
Yep. It's funny. That's that small world.
Yeah.
So, we really jump right in. So to the extent you're comfortable, can you kind of jump in and talk about your sober journey?
Yeah, I think it looks like the whole journey looks different for everybody, and anyone that gets through addiction is obviously very fortunate and probably has the right people around them, which is what I had. Mine was, so I've been sober 2 years now, 2 years, 1 month, and it was a long one though. I was probably, I'd say, when I really started to probably realize that I needed to stop, it was probably like 11 years though in the making, maybe a little shorter, but yeah. So kind of just normal childhood growing up, all that stuff, played sports, had a lot of friends, great high school, great public school journey, all that. And then my dad passed away when I was 16 years old. He died in front of me though. So, I mean, we lose people all the time and we deal with it differently, but mine was, he actually died in front of me and I had to give him CPR. And then obviously he didn't make it. And that kind of sent me on a path of substance abuse. I didn't think I had a problem, because I didn't actually start drinking until I was like 19. I waited to be the age of 19 and started drinking then. But then I just realized it just hit me different than most people. And that continued on until, 2 years ago. But at 30, I became a first responder and I started seeing people at their worst and I started giving CPR to people. And it wasn't so much the calls that triggered things. It was actually seeing the families and the way, knowing what they're going to go through in the coming weeks, months, years. And so that kind of set the drinking, I guess, on another path, another level. But I never showed up drunk to work, never did any of that stuff. I was just like a Thursday to Sunday, like let's drink, didn't have an off switch. And then it was again 2 years ago when I decided and I had quit here and there. I should point that out, as probably most people do in their recovery journey. I quit. I'd said, I don't need this, quit cold turkey, did all that, found fitness again, found this, found that. And then it just kept creeping back in my life. That's kind of the Cole's Notes version, I guess.
Now, do you do a program?
So when I first decided to get sober, I went to AA and I was pretty consistent with that. And I went with a friend of mine who's a couple years sober now too. And then I found an addictions specific therapist that I was seeing quite regularly. And then I stopped going to AA, and I've just been really all in on fitness again. And my morning routines are pretty structured. When I do, not so much in the summer, the kids home, but I find myself meditating quite a bit. I used to journal a lot. So no, I don't work a program anymore. I did recently go back to AA to take someone. Um, and so that was good to go back and just be like, okay, just like kind of another reset. But I was very fortunate when I went down this hole of like, okay, it's time to quit, that I was able to overcome it. And again, I had those bumps in the road way beforehand. So and then when I will probably continue to speak to do the talk therapy route and deal a little bit deeper into the trauma side of things with my dad passing. And then obviously found running, which you mentioned in the intro, 21 half marathons, 21 straight days for youth mental health
Yeah, we'll
awareness.
talk about your knees in a little while, but yeah, my wife, the therapist, likes to say trauma is the gateway drug.
Yeah,
And I think when you dig down with anyone who's, I always described myself as like the medicinal drinker. It was like 2, 3 glasses every night, take the edge off. And I just quit, but I did a bunch of therapy. I kind of believe if you find what works for you, there's no, prescribed method. I did a lot of meditation early on too, it's interesting. It's hard to like hang out in your own head. It's
absolutely.
not always that fun. Um,
Yeah, it for sure stuff like that too. And I think too, as you go through like the addiction process and sobriety, you find like a different circle of friends too. And so I'm pretty open with my group of friends, which is super helpful. I kind of lean into it a lot. So again, it looks different for everybody. So like, as I say, it's like, do you work a program? I'm like, nope, I'm good. Like I feel bad saying it too at the same time, because there's people that really are working every single day. But I just got to a point where I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and you know, my sleep was awful, my work ethic, my appearance, like all that stuff. I kind of lost my way for a little bit there.
yeah, and it's hard to show up as a husband and a dad, when you're a mess.
Right, and that's the biggest part too. You're saying all these things to your kids: do this, do this, do this, but you're not doing it yourself, right? So
Yeah,
how
it's
long?
the classic "do as I say, not as I do," which
Yeah,
having 2 kids that are adults now will come back and haunt you because they will call you on that at some point in time.
yeah,
When you're like, "Don't do this or do this," and then they just look at you and they know you're not
right,
living your word. It
yeah,
will.
right.
Even when they're little, they know. They just might not be able to say it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so they've been one of the best things to happen to me. And like I mentioned, that circle thing too. Like my wife was a huge part of this too. I think I mentioned this on other podcasts and when I speak now and stuff. And like I think we forget about the other side of it too, right? We're so quick to put people who have beaten things on a pedestal, which is of course great, right? You're sober and you kicked your addiction. I've done it, but it's also like the people that stuck by you too that matter, that are the ones that it should be like, hey, thank you, like good job, you hung in there.
Yeah, and the ones that impact you. It's funny. Last night, my wife and I were talking about like Al-Anon, and sometimes the people who end up in Al-Anon are more scarred from the person's substance abuse than that person. Actually, like because they're the subject of all of the bad behaviors. Like you can be like, all right, I'm better now, but you got to look around too, and like, where's all the shrapnel gone?
Right, yeah, yeah, it's very true. And again, so how long have you been sober? Sorry, I know you didn't say
It
that.
was 15 years in February, so it'll be
Oh wow.
16 years coming up. So yeah, my kids were like pretty little. Like the she's 18 now. She doesn't really remember. And then I have two my stepkids, but they're just my kids. They're, younger, but yeah, it's been a long time and I don't really think about it that much anymore. Like it's not it just my life is great, and there's like my mom died over the summer and, she was 85. So it's a very different, experience than yours. But I was sort of grateful for that sobriety, and all that, but I wasn't even, it didn't even like nudge me to want to drink, it wasn't even a thing.
But yeah, that's good. And that's like, I got there really early in my kind of journey. I was like, all right, well, that's the end of that. Like the first week when I was like, said to my wife, like, okay, I'm gonna get sober. And I'd said, like most people, I'd said this before, I'm gonna get sober. And it got to the point where she's like, yeah, sure. Right. We went to a winery the first week for lunch with friends, but I didn't tell them at the time. Yeah. And then I think we had some other stuff that same kind of week or two, and I just went all in on it. I was like, okay, I'm doing this. And that's just kind of the personality. And I think that's also, again, like maybe being grateful for the addiction piece, I guess, for me, is it's almost like a superpower now. I can just like, okay, I'm doing that. And that's what I'm doing. And I'm doing it 100%. So, um, yeah, it's, I was the same. And I don't miss it at all early on.
Yeah, and I think, when you find the beauty without it, you're like, I wouldn't do anything to mess this up. Like, I'm really, I'm happy with my life. I can't imagine. And we're a sober house, so that really helps. It's like there's no beer in my house, nothing, a lot of seltzer. And, so that's our relationship is, we were both sober when we met, but it's a foundational piece of like our relationship.
Yeah, that's great. And was like my wife barely drinks, so we have it like in the house here or whatever sometimes. But yeah, and my kids know that I don't drink. I'm around people that drink or parents drink. My mom sometimes has the odd glass of wine, but um, and other people, I still hang out with people that drink.
Yeah, some
And
people are
now,
able to have a beer.
yeah, right. And it's like my thing too is like, okay, I'm gonna go do this. I have an exit plan, right? Uh, I can leave. I can whatever. So it's a blessing, and that's like nobody's. I don't think ever woken up after getting sober for however many months, days, years, and gone, man, I wish I felt like crap. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Man, I
Yeah,
wish I
you're
didn't
like,
sleep last night.
yeah, when you have like a good chill weekend and you wake up like feeling good.
I think it's changing too. Like I was reading an article the other day, like call sales are way down
Way down.
in
I
general.
interviewed a guy who owns a bar in Chicago. He's sober. And he said the first year he brought like an NA menu and it was like 600% growth in the sales of NA. And a lot of it was like also the alcohol stuff going down. People who would have a beer and then switch, right? It's like the meatless burgers are not mostly for vegans. They're for actually people who eat meat but want to eat less. So there's the growth in that stuff is huge, right? And the research shows more and more that there's not really a healthy level of
No,
alcohol intake. There's just not, and I think people are catching up. I think the younger generations are less interested in alcohol. People in their 20s don't seem, and I see it at work, like they don't seem very alcohol oriented. So,
yeah, that's good. I think more people like fitness or something other than that or whatever it is. But yeah, for sure, I think it's way down everywhere. And again, like you said, generational thing. And there's all the studies are like are going back the other way. Like, oh, there's actually a glass of red wine isn't good or whatever, right? So, but
right, that shit was marketing for a while.
right, yeah, and I
It's like the alcohol industry. Like, yep, have that red wine. It'll lower your cholesterol.
right,
It'll do all this stuff. It's it feels like someone who was a kid in the 70s when a lot of people still smoked,
yeah,
right? And you don't see that much anymore.
no,
And
not
there
at
was a
all.
shift, right? And the science got ahead of the marketing.
Yeah, oh for sure. I remember my dad was a smoker, uh, but I remember going, you go to a restaurant, it's like smoking or non-smoking.
Yeah.
You sit in a booth and right beside you smoking. You're like, yeah,
Yeah,
and
or a
then
plane. I'm like,
yeah,
the air is recycled on this plane. There's not
yeah,
really a smoking and a non-smoking section. Yeah, I
yeah,
remember that as a kid. Or like family gatherings, almost everybody smoked. It
yeah.
was just
The
what it was.
the bars where we were after, they were like, okay, you could still smoke in restaurants. They put glass up, and then everyone, it was like a fishbowl, and then that was didn't last long. And then you go in, you could actually you could see it right behind the glass. You're like, that's disgusting.
Well,
People
and then
sitting there.
I remember when that shifted and all, bars and stuff were like, "Oh, we're gonna, like, go out of business." I mean, I go see a lot of music, and I was so happy when, like, you could go to a club. I mean, I grew up in Maine. I used to have, like, the winter coat that I would wear when I went out to see music because it would be so gross from smoke in the club that I just
Oof.
had this kinda thrashed coat that I'm like, "That's the one I'm gonna wear."
Ugh. Times have changed for sure.
So you became a first responder a little later.
Yeah, so I was a volunteer firefighter for 5 years prior, and then I got hired career. So I've been full time for 10, and then 5 previous. But yeah, and it was one of those things. It was always in the back of my mind. Like I graduated high school. I went to Brock University for sport management. I lasted a year there and was like, oh, I don't want to do this. Then ended up at a college for communications, specifically like TV communications. Did that for 3 years, finished that program. And all while like just working odd jobs, sales, fence, roofing, landscaping, all that stuff. Uh, and then went back to another university to get the degree in the communication side. And again, lasted like half a semester. And knowing what I know now, I wish I just pushed through so I'd have, a degree. Not that you need it, but just to say I had one. I don't know. It all worked out in the end. And then, but always in the back of my mind was the first responder stuff. And my mom was always like, you should do fire. You should do fire, you know. So then I got on as a volunteer. And then I just, as a volunteer, started chipping away at different courses, like rescue courses. So I did rope rescue, hazmat, water rescue, and then the volunteer training and recruitment and all that. And then kept applying to places, got a few interviews here and there, and then finally got hired, like I said, 5 years after I was a volunteer. So yeah, it was, well, I guess longer than 5 years. I was volunteer for 5 years, but it took me way longer to get hired. So yeah, it was always just in the back of my mind, and then I just started to go for it. And like I said, I did all kinds of random jobs along the way.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of respect to all the first responders, but because my community, it's a rural community, we have volunteer firefighters, and you got to respect the person that's volunteering to do that because it's dangerous.
Hmm.
Like I've served on nonprofit boards, I volunteer. That's generally not that dangerous. So like, that's like an intense volunteer commitment where you're putting your life at risk.
Yeah, for sure, and it's different in every department, right? And some areas of the world, and you know different countries, et cetera, have like are all volunteers, right? But the community or town I'm in now, we have two fire stations, I believe. Yeah, and they're mainly volunteer through the evenings, and I think there's like one full time crew in the night. And then where I'm out of, we have 8 stations, but one of them is a volunteer station. It's just staffed when a call comes in, they show up.
Hmm.
It's not staffed all the time. So yeah, and it was good. It was a good stepping stone. I learned a lot, and it served its purpose. And a lot of people I volunteered with are now on with me and stuff. So that's kind of neat. Or in other departments.
Yeah. Do you think your experience with your dad kind of led you in that direction?
I think it probably played a part in it for sure. Um, I think like going back to that day, which now specifically now I've relived a lot over the last few months because of the challenge that I'm going to be doing. But now I'm okay with reliving it. And I'm not angry and the whole why me approach anymore. Um, Yeah, I think so. I think it played a little part in it. Seeing first responders show up that day, the way they handle themselves. And then I've always just had that like drive to help people and give back. So I kind of have the best of both worlds now because I do a lot of our charity stuff for our association within the department, and then also get to respond to calls. So kind of I get to help in two different ways.
Yeah.
So there's always that piece. So I think it definitely played a steered me in a direction for sure.
All right. Let's talk fitness. So you said you discovered fitness again. Now I think when a lot of people say they discovered fitness, or discovered fitness again, it might not be 21 marathons in, in 21 days. So, how did your sort of rediscovery of fitness start? And then, what's kind of the road, to taking on this challenge?
Yeah. So like I had always, like I said, I'd always played sports growing up. Um, I was high level hockey, all that stuff. And that was like my passion. And then um, various sports growing up. And then as I got older and met my now wife, she did triathlon. So I did the duathlon stuff with her, which was run, bike, run races. And I loved that. And we go to the gym and I go to the gym with all my buddies. So I always had a passion for fitness and weightlifting. Loved the way I felt and looked when I was like into it. And then obviously the drinking though, I think I got into a piece of like, I worked out today so I can drink as I got older and, you know, the addiction stuff started to happen. Um, yeah. And then probably about, so I stopped all the duathlon stuff like years ago. My wife had stopped doing triathlon. She just got into swimming and I kept doing weightlifting and playing hockey and golf and all that stuff. And then about 3 years ago, I started getting into running again and I started signing up to different races and I just fell in love with it again. There was something about like just getting outside and running. And then the further the runs got, the more thinking I started to kind of
Yeah.
do. And then you pair that again as you add in the addiction piece and you slowly start to remove that from your life. And you know, your audience, and you can speak to this, like you have no choice when you don't have that coping mechanism. You have to deal with whatever it is that life's throwing at you, like properly, right? It's not like get in an argument with somebody or your wife or whatever, or kids are sick and you're tired. Well, the next day or that night I'll just drink and I'll just forget about it and we'll move on to the next day. It's like you have to sit in it, whatever you're feeling. And I found that I could do that when I would run, more so on those longer runs. So that's why I say I never lost fitness, but I found like a love for something again that I had when I played hockey many years ago or when I was heavily into weight training or whatever when I was younger. So there was that piece to it, and that really started kind of help me in the healing. And you mentioned like, do you still work a program? And running is kind of that. As crazy as it sounds, and some people it won't be crazy because it makes sense to them. It's just something I can go out my front door and for an hour, 2 hours, 40 minutes, whatever, just go with music, without music, think, whatever. So that's kind of how I kind of phrase it, refound it, because it really helped me through this whole thing.
And so now let's talk about the challenge a little bit and then training for the challenge, because that's a whole different thing. So, what made you decide to take on 21 marathons in 21 days? And we'll put a link in the show notes so people can support your cause.
Yeah, yeah. Everything's on the mainly I do everything on Instagram, and then there's a link in there to the donation page, and all the routes are up there, and sponsors. But yeah, so I'm doing 21 half marathons over 21 straight days, so 21 kilometers a day for 21 straight days. And originally the goal was $21,000 for Pastone, which is a mental health facility here in the Niagara region where I'm from, that services youth, so 18 and under. And it kind of came about because of, again, going back to trauma, my past stuff with addiction and kind of recovering from that and wanting to give back somehow and show people like, hey, there's light at the end of the tunnel. You just got to battle, surround yourself with the right people. And also too, in December, I came home and my son had been struggling a little bit here and there at school. And so we were trying to see if we could find someone like that would talk to him, and there wasn't really anybody, at least specifically, um, in his school. There was like one person, let's say, for 10 schools or whatever. So my wife and I were talking about it, and then I went out for a run, and I came home, and I said, why don't I run for mental health, and we'll raise money, and then maybe that money could go to creating a job for somebody. I don't Something along those lines. I said, I'll do 30 marathons in 30 days. She's like, that's crazy because you still got to work and you still have children. So I said, how about 21 kilometers a day for 21 straight days? So 21 half marathons. She's like, I love it. And I was like, okay, that's it. So I went all in on it. I shut down kind of all the rest of my races I had signed up for that were coming up. Like there was a few like January and March or something, or February and March. And then I just started to like slowly ramp up my training. And then May, so basically from May to the first week of September, I've just ramped up each week and train longer distances. The more time on my feet really is the goal. And I'm not running like these crazy paces. Like now I can run, a half marathon. My fastest is an hour 36 or an hour 37.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty quick, like a 4:37 kilometer an hour. But I'm going to be doing these at like 6:30, 7 minute kind of pace.
Right.
So nice and slow, just time on my feet. And then it just snowballed. I ended up on the news and then I ended up with 21 different sponsors. So I wear a different logo shirt every day. And they paid money for me to wear the logo, which is a donation. That was like $10,000 in donations right there. And the whole point of it is to spread awareness for mental health and what running or fitness can do for you, and to show like youth, like, hey, if you go through something hard, there is outlets, there's things out there, and you can push through and battle and come out the other side. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And an important part of that, it can be just so hard to find a therapist for a kid, I mean, adults even, but like really like mental health for kids and adolescents can be just super hard to come by.
yes, big time, right? And that's the biggest piece. It's there's more resources now, I think, or maybe they were all, like the place that I'm raising money for, Pastone, it's been around for like 50 years, right? I just think it's something that we didn't talk about as much. And like, it's not, it's a generational thing. And I don't think it's fault to parents. You don't know what you don't know, right? And now being a dad and showing up every day for my kids and having hard days, and now looking back at my parents, it's like, oh yeah, you did the best you could with what you had. And some things affect people differently. But yeah, there's stuff out there. It's just you gotta seek it out more, right? We need to have it more accessible.
Yeah, and it's true, the conversation has really shifted. Like, as a kid of the 70s, no one talked about having a therapist, right? Or
Right?
even as a teenager in the 80s, nobody talked about that. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't even a thing. And so it is more of a conversation, and awareness of like mental health I think is greater, which is really good. It's still probably not enough, and people's access can be really hard with health insurance, and does the therapist take the insurance and all that? It can be challenging, and you don't ever want resources to like keep somebody, from getting help.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely I think a boundary still. And it might always be, I don't know. But like anything, you just keep pushing forward and working towards something that you believe in, and hopefully, one myself can hopefully make a difference, and at least, gotten so many messages from people online. Just keep doing what you're doing, keep showing up, be really helping people, and that's the main thing, right? At first too, I was like, I gotta do. That's probably the hardest part of this thing is going on Instagram, and I like doing it, but like it's hard. Say something different every day, put
Right.
yourself out there, right? Like this is me running. I'm like, hey, I'm running again. Like, don't be afraid to ask for help. Like, so
Yeah, everyone's like, you should do video content. I'm like, oh, that sounds terrible to me to do video content. What do your kids think of this? They must know about the challenge and
yeah, they love. So one's 8 and one's 4. The 4-year-old, like he knows, but he's not like
right.
super aware. But the 8-year-old's all in. Like he did a lemonade stand this summer, and 50% of his sales will go to a donation for me. And the one of the runs of the 21 is a school run, so I'm going to be running past all the schools
Oh,
in the area
cool.
we live in, and so they'll be outside for that one. So he's super excited about that. Yeah, he's great, and he understands the sober thing too, pretty well. So we I share that a lot with them. So they love it, especially the older one.
Yeah, I think, that openness with your kids about sobriety and making choices that are healthy is, super important. Like the younger two have no awareness. Like they only know me as a sober person, because I met them when they were older. They don't have any conception of me as someone who drank at one point, and like that's how I want it to be. And like I said, even the older two, the oldest, he does a little bit, but his sister, and she's 18 now, doesn't. She was pretty young, when I stopped drinking, and it just makes a huge difference. Like we're moving her into the dorm Friday, she's heading off to school, and like just being able to appreciate all that, with like clear head and heart is it's such a blessing.
Oh, absolutely. It goes back to what I said earlier, right? No one's ever woke up the next day and go, "Man, I wish I felt awful." And you get to enjoy all those things. And like, I'm not sure, is it? Are you very much like make your own decisions with your kids, or are you like don't drink? Because I know for like mine are very young, but I'm not gonna say don't. Uh, I'm gonna just encourage like, hey, maybe you don't do that, but it's totally like up to you if you try it when you're older.
Yeah, I mean, I think the conversation, so one, he's 22 and he'll go out and have a beer with friends. He's super, like, he'll always Uber, so he's super, careful about that thing and not drinking and driving. I think as kids get older, especially teenagers, just when you tell a teenager don't do something, doesn't doesn't usually go well. They'll be like, "Huh, I think I should do that because you don't want me to do that."
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the open conversation, I think, is what matters. And I mean, they are going to have to make their own choices, or a reminder that there's a genetic component to this stuff is important. But yeah, it was never like a don't do it. It was more like, you know, observe me in my life. You're going to make your decision. The older two, their mom is like a glass of wine with dinner kind of person. So that's not an unhealthy example either. I'm
Hmm.
not like anti-alcohol. It's not for me. There are people out there, they can have a glass of wine or beer and that's their thing. And it doesn't, have negative impacts. That's cool. But not everybody's like that. And I think that's sort of the conversation with kids as they get older, right? Like, you have to know yourself and like what the impacts are on you and like why are you drinking, right? Are you going to college and like getting drunk, or do you like to go out to a pub with your friends and have a beer and hang out and you have a beer and then you go home? I think it's the reason behind the action, matters. And obviously when a kid's 4 or 8, they don't really understand because, it's not a choice that they're going to have to make.
No, and it's not a conversation we're having anytime soon, but it's just something I think about down the road for sure. And I think, yeah, I think that's a good point. Um, yeah, what's the drink for? And I used to do that too. Like, do I want this drink? Do I need this drink? Um, Most of the time it was like, I don't need it. We're gonna have it anyways. Yeah, I think it's just about educating them down the road, like anything. But yeah, like you said, they're gonna do what they're gonna do. All you can do is give them a little guidance.
Yeah, we're a super open house, and I think all 4 kids sort of realize that kinda anything's on the table to talk about, and as they get older, they realize not all their friends' houses are like that, whatever it is, alcohol or sex or whatever, like, bring the topic, we'll talk about it, and that is certainly not always the norm with their friend group, because I generally think more information is better than less information, and the worst thing is like to have people not have information. So the only way to figure something out is just, the internet or just experiment or some other way that's not a good sort of conversation based around truth and reality. Because there's a lot of like misinformation out there. So as a parent, it's kind of my job to like put the right information in front of the kids, and then they're going to have to take that as it is and make a decision, but at least they'll have the right info.
Absolutely, for sure. And normalizing everything, right? And like then that reality piece is huge. Because then I think they'll be less likely to not misbehave, but maybe break some rules if it's just kind of an open house. So yeah, I'll see what happens when I'm in that stage. Right now we're in that just play on the ground and play cars and puzzle and all that fun stuff. So
It goes fast though. I mean, I can't believe I have a kid that's 22. I mean, it's nuts to me. I just still remember when he was a little baby. I mean, it just goes so fast.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm learning that too. Everything just flies by, and that's why it's so great to like clear head all that stuff now.
Yeah, you're
You're
not
not
missing
missing
it.
anything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, before we finish up, so when's the run start?
So September 21st to October 11th is when we begin. It's a different time every day, but yeah, and September 21st it will be 25 years to the day my dad passed. So that's why I'm starting on that day.
All right, and we'll link to you on Instagram so people can follow your progress. And I'm excited to see how it turns out. And like I said, we'll put the donation link in there if people are so moved. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, I really appreciate this. Yeah, please, if you can link anything, click that the link in my bio for the donation. We're again, the goal is 21,000. We're at 29,000 now, and I haven't even started. So I moved it to 40.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an impactful number that'll help that organization.
Yeah, I think so. Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Have a great night.
You too.
Thanks for listening. Sober Dad Crew is a DIY project by Stephen Kimball, who writes, edits, and produces the show. To support the show, please review it where you listen to podcasts or visit soberdadcrew.com to buy some merchandise or make a donation.